and I'm only 6'3", so, or maybe 6'2", since I'm past 50, and I'm shrinking a little bit, as it sometimes happens among our people getting a little shorter. I am David Toulis, and I do thank you for tuning in here. Just 5 minutes of your time is all I ask for. The arguments I make are very weak. They're very weak arguments, and I want you to know that I've persisted here on this show, making arguments that are very thin. And I keep them in pencil, and I don't press too hard on the paper for fear of making an indentation on the page below that someone might read and try to figure out what I'm saying earlier, and then say, wow, here's a tracing of a former message from David Toulis, and let's see what he has to say. And so they chalk it up with black dust and read the message through the paper and look at it somehow as if it were hallowed and true, and we've got to think about this. We've got to write some books about this and so on. Well, no, it's in pencil, and I write lightly so that it doesn't make too much of an impression on you, my listener, because even though moral truths don't change, God doesn't change. What men say is to be taken lightly, perhaps, and especially if you're just a blogger, right? I'm the blogger, David Toulis, here with the biggest pen, but that doesn't mean that what we offer is hallowed and fixed, right? These are suggestions, and we are here to work out our salvation, if you will, as a city, in fear and trembling. The salvation being greater justice in Chattanooga, and less oppression, and more genuine care for individuals among people like you, my listener, the man who matters, maybe the woman who matters. And there is work to be done to make ourselves a more just city. I like Dave Crockett's idea of the post, you might say, the post-nation city-state. That's I used to be very suspicious of Dave Crockett and some parts of the environmental theory that he has espoused for a long time. But there is a post-nation state future ahead, and he is our greatest statesman, I think, in his mid-70s, because he sees that and worked for some years with a nation-state-oriented group that sees past the current existence of these national corporations, which we call governments, which are gigantic machines for the absorption of loans and debt, which are going to go bankrupt. There was going to be a national bankruptcy. Effectively, the national government is already in receivership. I would say there has not been a filing in the U.S. District Court for official bankruptcy and reorganization, which I don't know if that would actually happen if the feds go under, that they file in their own district court. It's not likely to happen, since that court is a creature of the national government. How could it possibly handle the distressing situation of the national government's pockets having only lint in them and no coin? Something ahead. Dave Crockett thinking that Chattanooga could become and is becoming an independent city-state. And of course, Crockett has the argument that I've not heard much about in the past 3 or 4 months of a high-speed rail between Chattanooga and Atlanta. I think that with national bankruptcy pending, that is something that's just untenable. It's not going to happen, and yet, I think that Chattanooga can become a kind of city on the hill with a modesty and moderation and mercy that we're not going to find in other cities like Nashville, Memphis, or Elizabethton, or Bristol, other cities in Chattanooga, Clarksville. These places have their own worlds to deal with, and we here, thinking globally and acting lococentrically, we are going to bring about reforms. And one that I'm working on with some effort, some mental effort and spiritual effort, is the implication of Title 55 reform, transportation statute reform, because the modern commercial government, the deep state in Tennessee, there is a deep state, operates there, not as part of Tennessee government, but as part of a separate operation, I'd like to suggest, called State of Tennessee. Kind of a corporation serving corporations and feeding off of mutually supporting gigantic combines like great benefits, right? The company in the movie called Rainmaker, which I saw flashes of on television the other night, with sitting there in my mother's den, the 94-year-old woman. We don't have cable in her house, and so we look to see what we can find on TV. And so sometimes she'll watch a nice travel show, and so there was the other night the Rainmaker on about the young lawyer, the John Grisham novel, The Young Lawyer, and taking on great benefits and bringing it into bankruptcy. These combinations work together here in Tennessee as well, bringing us commercial government. And the number to call to get on the program is 800-8949, 800-8949. Brought to you by Nuganomics.com. There's been a great interest, just FYI, in the past day now about the exemption for vaccinations. If you, like me, want to have healthy children, you, like me, should consider not vaccinating and making a manly or womanly decision, a fatherly or motherly decision, to avoid these poisons that are in many vaccines. Your child's supposed to have about 30 or 40 vaccinations in the course of his or her time in your house as a child. And all I can say is this is a probably a dreadful mistake. And so how do you avoid getting vaccinations and having the mandatory vaccinations, the required vaccinations mentioned in the story yesterday in the Chattanooga Time Free Press, which is, as far as a local media outlet, lagging on 2 points. Number one, the story yesterday, I think on the top of Region page, just incredibly disappointing because it didn't talk about the alternatives. It gave just the progressive position, right? The progressive interventionist position that you can't be in public school without proof of vaccination. Well, yes, you can. And if you're going to find out how, you can't go to the TFP. You have to go to David Toulis at Nuga Radio and our sponsor here on the microphone, Nuganomics.com. That's Nuganomics.com. I am just a writer, and that I'm just a blogger. Okay, just a blogger. Maybe the longest lasting private nonprofit blogger in Chattanooga. That platform has been around for 7 years, and it has a subscriber. Okay, so if you subscribe, because you may be the man who matters in text as well as in listening into the show, you'll increase my readership by 100%. I'll have 200% readers if you sign up at Nuganomics.com. Well, do subscribe. It's free. It's nonprofit. But we are here at New Radio, which is a commercial for-profit enterprise. And what we do to make our bills go down to zero, paid happily every month, is to provide a great service by having great spots written for your business, right? Your business, your charity, your church. So we want to be a city that Dave Crockett envisions, an independent city state that has as the powers of centralization fall away, which is the geopolitical major trend, right? The major trend now that we can trace the beginnings of it were really the twin blasts over Japan, according to one major historian whose work is a transformative historical work, Martin Van Creveld. He says he identifies the end of the nation state in 1945. But there's been, of course, hegemony, centralization going on afoot, while meanwhile the trends against the monolith, right, against the behemoth, the gigantic centralized totalitarian authoritarian Stasi Gestapo state, that system is collapsing, even though all around us we see evidences of it continuing to aggregate, continuing to consolidate, even under President Trump. But in that decentralization, there will be what's called a devolution of power. Power will not continue to go toward Washington, but power will come back to locales and states. And you're part of that process, my listener, or you can be. And I'm part of that process too, partly because I'm the narrator of the story, right? I'm telling the story of how it's happening. And just FYI, this devolution of power, I'd say one major step in this devolution of power, there are several that I can mention right quick. Do you want me to do that? Okay, well, one of them, the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. One important step in devolution is Title 55 reform, where Chattanooga will become a sanctuary city from Title 55. And it's not doing something against the law here. No, it's doing something that is obedient to the statute. It's obedient to most case law, though Chattanooga in double nickel reform is going against Nashville, against the white legal political establishment led by insurance companies in Nashville. Right? This is the dynamic. And Mayor Burke is he knows about this reform. His staff has read the administrative notice that I gave, so they know what's afoot. But he won't pick it up. And so we need to have a new mayor when Andy Burke is either thrown out of office or leaves office after his second term, which is still 2.5, 3 years out. A new mayor who understands that we can set our own destiny. Now, all right, are there other steps of this devolution? Well, yes, there are. And look here. Look in the non-insurance medical payments area. Now, I'm involved in that. David Tool is your host. I don't have insurance for my medical coverage. Well, how's that? Don't you have to have it in the law? Well, no, I don't. And neither do you. If I file a tax return voluntarily, which I do, even though I'm not liable for performance under that U.S. code, if I voluntarily file a tax return and claim, how do I make a claim on insurance? Because you're supposed to show that you have insurance. Well, I don't have that. Well, what I do is I would file, and I forgot the form number, that I'm have an exemption under the religious part of provision in the U.S. code, the tax code, Title 49, of being involved in a cost sharing ministry, and I am. So I have I write a check every month to some needy family with medical expenses. I write that check directly to Mr. and Mrs. John Doe in Muskogee, Illinois, okay, or someplace usually far away. And that check goes to support reimbursing that family for medical expenses that it has outside of insurance. And so there's no legal claim that these people have upon me, but I, as a Christian, taking part in Samaritan Ministries, and that is Samaritan Ministries. If you want to find out more about it, make sure you mention my name, David Toulis. We mutually, without legal recourse, support each other. And you have to be a practicing Christian to be part of that association. But all the members there get the cash price, and they get help if they need it on negotiating the cash price from a provider. That is to say, someone reading a test or a hospitalization or a surgeon. It's all in the cash economy in the medical field. It's about if you pay through insurance or insurance bill is billed $100 procedure, the actual price of that procedure is more like $23, $24, and that's what you pay. And your colleagues, when they reimburse you, pay $24. So this whole area has brought up the boutique medical care practice. And for example, my mother, retired widow, is she pays, I think, $75 or $50 a month by subscription to a local doctor, Matthew Hitchcock, a Navy veteran who runs Hitchcock Family Medicine in Hickson. And so she whatever she needs, he's there for her, whether it's a test, and he gets super cheap test results. And we're in the real economy right here, in the real economy. This is reform. The Medicare Medicaid system, it's becoming increasingly dysfunctional, increasingly expensive, with fraud rife throughout that system. The fraud simply means that the free market is eating away at the inside of the monster, right? The monster being the federal government with its incessant vituperative interventions. Vituperative means poisonous, right? Which is a constant poisonous interventions in the market. It's seizure of whole marketplaces. And here we have this quiet area outside that system where you have the real price, you have price consciousness, you have price conscious consumers, and they are getting their medical services at the real market, and it's all by prescription. In the race against Chuck Fleischman, there is a Democrat seeking the primary, and she has she's in that business. So here she is, this Democrat lady candidate, and I forgot her name, but she's running for office, and she's part of the free market. She's a cash. Her clinic is sports care medicine, and she takes cash payments. And I think when she launched out, she was almost trying to be entirely in the cash economy for medical reimbursements, and that's all. Again, we're looking into the future there, how these systems are reforming, and they're bringing back the players in a particular market apart from the intervening systems, which intervention always, by definition, intervening systems, when the state is in control or has seized the marketplace, you have two results: higher prices and shortages. Those are always the fruit of statism, of progressivism, whether that progressivism is brought to you by your local Democrat, right, or Jodha Thungnopia, for example, is a progressive Democrat. We'll be talking with him in just a few minutes. He has progressive solutions. But whether by that party or the Republican Party, you have on both sides, you have intervention. We have an answer, and it's a matter of tinkering with the law, making a new chapter, maybe a new provision in the statute, and we have good things flowing out of Nashville or out of Washington. The number is 800-8949, 800-8949. And so Chattanooga, so those are 2 points for Chattanooga, the future of Chattanooga. And let me just mention one more, just kind of in passing. Well, maybe you have one. Can you suggest how Chattanooga, you my listener, how could Chattanooga, from what you see, right, in the economy, in your work, in your calling, in your business, in your family life, what do you see as a possible way in which Chattanooga can become independent and self-directing? Can we choose our own destiny? Can East Ridge choose its own destiny? I've urged Brent Lambert, the mayor of East Ridge, that to take up Title 55 reform would make him a national figure. And I promise you that it would. Title 55 reform would end the police state in many, many ways. It would decommercialize government. What we have is a great evil in our day, and that's called commercial government. You say, well, boy, David, you think you're slapping around the police state, and calling it commercial government is not, that's not really a high profile, noisy, vindictive and angry kind of usage, is it? I mean, it sounds kind of dull and boring. Well, it is dull and boring, and that's why I use it, because it's not fighting words, right? To call the modern state commercial government is not fighting words, and I really don't want people to be angry in the fighting sense. I want them to be analytic and reflective, and then say, well, I'm going to do something about that. I'm going to travel under administrative notice. I have an expired license, or I have a revoked license, and what I'm going to do is, if David Toulis is right, then maybe there's a benefit for me. I'm going to be in my car, and when I'm stopped, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not involved in commerce. I'm traveling under administrative notice, and your department's been notified of that, and I'm traveling under the authority of that notice. You've been notified. And here, let me give you, officer, a courtesy copy. I printed it out for you. Put a staple in the top left corner, maybe 2 staples since it's 20 pages, and I'm giving you a courtesy copy. But I'm a free traveling person. I'm not under Title 55, and I've not done anything wrong. I've committed no crime, and I'm under Title 55. And if you arrest me, that's oppression. Okay, just so you know, you have been notified. So that's the kind of person you see who's taking action in his own hands. And if enough people do that, if enough people build up their claims upon the marketplace, their claims upon freedom and liberty that God gave them, right? God gave you. He gave you, because you're made in his image. He gave you the right to move, the right to go from point A to point B in the means of your choice. You're going to go and exercise your rights. You're going to go and vote on Thursday. Do you have to get the government's permission to go and vote? Do you, my listener, have to get the government's permission to get into your car and go to the polling station 5 or 6 blocks from where you live? If you have to get the government's permission to do that, then you're not free, and your voting is just a sham and a joke. And caller, you're live on the air with David Toulis. What's your question or comment? This is David Toulis. What's on your mind? Well, this is David Toulis, and if you have to beg permission from the government to exercise a right, well, you don't have a right, whether it's the right to abortion, as we're alleged that they have, or whether it is the right to vote, the right to worship. This is David Schwartz. I've got some wonderful messages ahead, and CBS News is just at the top of the hour here. The number is 800-8949, and I do have a caller in line. Just hang on for a second. 800-8949, brought to you by Nukenomics.com, and I thank you. We'll be right back. Support all of our wonderful sponsors. David Toulis.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Assessor of property Marty Haynes denied accusations that he gave special tax break favors to GOP candidate Esther Helton. Jonathan Mason, Helton's GOP opponent, says it's not an accusation, it's just a fact. Haynes telling the press he will take the matter up with the comptroller's office. A mobile home fire has been ruled an arson. Investigators with the Insurance and Safety Fire Commission in Georgia say it happened at an empty mobile home on Airport Road in Tryon. A reward of up to $10,000 is offered for info that leads to an arrest and conviction of the arsonist. And a hit-and-run victim has been ID'd as 62-year-old Donald Rackley. The CPD says a passing driver spotted Mr. Rackley's body on the side of the road just before 8 a.m. Monday on Norcross Road. The CPD Traffic Division believes he was hit by a driver who then sped away. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News now.
Sam Jordan, News Talk 92.7 Action Sports now. Southern League has announced that the Lookouts hitter Brent Rooker has been named the Southern League Player of the Week for July 23rd through 29th. He had a standout week for the Lookouts, hitting a .500 with 13 for 26 with 3 homers and 7 RBIs. He's the 2017 SEC Player of the Year. That also drew 7 walks last week. His on-base percentage of .606 was the highest in Double-A during that span. Nearly 7,500 amateur golfers descend on California for the 2018 United States Amateur that will field top Chattanooga Mocs men's golf player in Etienne Brault, who qualified to join them recently for the upcoming August 13th through 19th Golfapalooza. Brault competes against fellow top golfers from around the world at one of golf's most hallowed stages, Pebble Beach Golf Club, and there are a few courses as iconic as the Jack Neville Douglas Grant masterpiece along the Monterey coastline. Sam Jordan, News Talk 92.7 Action Sports now.
Chattanooga weather.
Tuesday, lots of clouds with scattered showers and thunder showers rolling in from the south or west for your afternoon. High settling into the lower 80s. Tonight, another round of showers and storms. Lows closer to 70. For the midweek, continued unsettled. Lots of clouds, showers, and storms likely through Thursday. Highs closer to 80. Hamilton Physician Group. Calhoun, Georgia Primary Care is now in a new location. 160 Curtis Parkway. Personalized